Dog Day Afternoon is now on Broadway, starring John Bernthal, Eben Moss-Bachrach, and more. It's based on the Oscar-winning film that was inspired by the real-life New York bank heist during the sweltering summer of 1972. Here's Beth Stevens with another edition of Building Broadway.
Thanks for letting us sit on the set of Dog Day Afternoon.
You're always welcome in this bank.
So this play is based on not only a really famous movie starring Al Pacino and John Cazale, but also a true story.
Yeah.
So where did you begin with designing it?
So weirdly, my relationship with this show goes all the way back to 2016 when I was doing Misery on Broadway, and Mark Kaufman, the producer, head of Warner Brothers Theatrical, said, "We're thinking about doing an adaptation." And I thought, amazing, I want to watch that movie. I don't think I had seen the movie at that point, or maybe I saw it when I was a kid. And I looked at the movie and I remember being so struck by the pressure cooker environment of the show, right? I mean, Al Pacino was like ripping that place apart, and it was incredible. And I think that I started designing it that day.
Just in your head?
Yeah. Cut to a couple years later, and randomly Stephen Adly Guirgis said to Mark Kaufman, I'd love to use David Korins. And Mark said, great, because I told him about the show 4 years ago.
It's good to have a relationship with the
I
playwright.
know, it was great that they both wanted me. So we kind of started 10 years ago very, very casually talking. I started with a tremendous amount of research. I started with the real bank and the movie bank, and printed out 1,000 pictures and put them on the wall in my studio. And we started to have a dialogue about what they did in the movie as the production design in order to like really pull focus and push your eye towards things versus what the real bank was. And then we tried to figure out what we wanted to do here.
What's an example of what they did in the film to pull your focus?
Well, the real bank was so boring. Right?
I mean, banks aren't known for being exciting.
Yeah, headline. It wasn't a place for like, high entertainment. And kind of like bleached of color, and then you could really tell that the production design of the movie was made to kind of make a background in which the people could jump off the background or be like pulled away from the background, and that in every shot there's something really interesting going on the wall or on the surfaces. And so we obviously took a page from that, because I wanted to make an environment where as you let your eye wander around the space, it felt 100% real. It's a challenging show because so much of the play takes place outside and in a third location. But it really is about a group of people getting trapped inside of a room. And so we challenged ourselves first and foremost to make a place that would feel complete. Floor, ceiling, all the walls, 2 doors that lock, and all of those things. And then I had to figure out how to go back and forth between those things.
This is about a bank robbery. I don't think that that's spoiling anything.
No,
and
not a spoiler.
there's a hostage situation, so you want to feel that claustrophobic tension.
Yeah. First I started with what is the amount of space that I thought, 10, 11 people, ultimately 9 people who are trapped inside of a room could take up. And it could feel okay given the potential violence, right? You couldn't compact it so much because there's a shotgun in the bank, right? And there's guns, and there's kind of a hot zone around the door where you can't really be standing because you know that the cops are outside looking in. And so ultimately, weirdly, it became the entire width of the proscenium, right? It really is a unit set, a box set. And so as I figured out where the tellers would sit and where the bank manager would sit and all that, it kind of became a full set, not a small compressed thing. Figuring out how to get outside and to the liquor store across the street actually became more about narrative. When the cops stake out across the street, I kind of worked backward from this very, very important phone call that happens at the end of the show between 2 characters. I wanted to give a sense that we never cross-faded out of the bank, that in a hostage situation, even when scenes took place in another location, they would always be live. You would always see them, sweating, you would see the kind of conditions of the bank, you would see time ticking away, and that they would never not be on stage. And it felt really important to do that so that the audience could be complicit in like the energy of the pent up.
Right, as if you're watching it live on TV or something like that.
Completely. So I felt like it might be more interesting to have the liquor store play in the foreground so that you would never lose the people, and so that ultimately that phone conversation could happen and you would never have kind of lose focus between the 2 people on the phone. Rupert wanted to make the bank become an iconic symbol, And so when you walk into the theater, you see just the exterior of the bank. And I think part of what really kind of makes the design an event is that when the thing rotates into place, you can't believe that we're storing all of this backstage.
Should we do some banking?
Okay, yeah.
Everything is so real. The deposit slips say Chase Manhattan Bank. I mean, this is
So we had to get
very
clearance.
specific.
First of all, we went back and forth whether or not we were going to use actually Chase Manhattan Bank because that's where the robbery was, and we did get corporate approval to use the exact logo and all that.
Wow.
And this is an example of a detail that I love because these deposit slips and these payment slips and withdrawal slips are things that I don't think the audience can see.
right.
To me, part of the job of a designer is to help the performers know where they are. And so every single label on all of those filing cabinets, every single thing we went to painful detail to make them accurate, right? So this is the Chase Savings Center,
It feels like you
pamphlet.
can pick that up and apply for a savings account or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we really challenged ourselves to do that so that the performers would know exactly who they were. And I just love all of those little details. I mean, part of that is also working with the performers and trying to figure out what happens because, as you know, this place gets trashed every night.
Right.
And so some of it is built extra strong and durable, but also a lot of it is here for the person who just like lets their eye kind of move around the space and find it and challenge themselves to see if we like have done it accurately. All of these FDIC, all of this is 1972. It's completely correct. Yeah.
And also what I love about this is that this is not a pristine bank. This is a bank that has definitely been used within the community that it's in. The windows aren't fully clean.
That's right. I mean, we're doing 1972 Brooklyn. I mean,
Yeah.
this is not a Midtown branch. It speaks to the time, the place, but also just who the people are that are trying to rob the bank. Mm-hmm. Right. It says a lot about what I think they were trying to pull off. And, they talk in the show. It's like, we have $20,000. Like, we've got a fortune. So I think that all adds up. And you didn't want it to feel like some, perfectly pristine place. Same thing. Like, we designed and printed this wallpaper. I love the fact that these, the edges are curling, the seams are curling. And when you do 1972, you have to think to yourself, when was it actually put in? It was probably put in like in 1960. It's been there for 12 years. And so what does that look like? And one of my favorite details is seeing Butterman's desk chair, the marks on the wall where it hits and has worn away, because you can just imagine he's gone back and forth in that chair.
Right, he's leaning back
10,000 times. Yeah, that's right.
And in the film, you do go inside the vault, but here you just get a glimpse of it. Can we go look at that?
Yeah, of course. Let's go. We actually handmade all of these deposit boxes. And what I like is you kind of go out here and go around into the vault. So there's some action that takes place behind these bars. It's all metal, it's all accurate, and it just gives extra layers of depth. Same thing over here. There's an entire office that I think only one person ever goes into one time. But I didn't want it to feel like this was just a little box and fake. So we added more and more and more depth. And then of course, the more depth we added, the harder it became to actually move this entire wagon.
This is on a turntable.
That's right.
And so, first of all, the actors don't leave, and so they're having to stay still while that's happening.
Yes, and that was a thrilling day of tech when they all got to ride it for the first time, and it was, Surfing USA. I will say it's not a turntable. It's actually a much more kind of complex system, and it's not even what we would normally call a turtle. A turtle is this thing that both tracks and rotates. It's actually a kind of a newer system, because it has to do multiple things. It has to rotate completely around, and then it rotates in a different way. It was so important that everything did not move or rumble or shake when it rotated. And so we have hanging light fixtures, all of them are made extra rigid, because we wanted to be, and there's almost no noise. And so the entire premise was we have to get this thing to work kind of perfectly. And we spent a lot of time in the scene shop kind of dialing it in, because as you can imagine, this thing is tens of thousands of pounds rotating, constantly.
The fun of the set is that it moves, and we are now going to see it move.
Right, this is like, this is the extra premium ticket. No one gets to feel this, except for the actors.
So we're going to use our cores.
We're going to use our core.
So we don't fall over.
We're going to bend at the knee. Oh.
Whoa.
Come on, let's go. Oh my God. Wait, this is intense.
This is intense. Whoa, let's go.
Now there's a little curb here.
Yeah.
Okay, come on.
Wow.
I love what's happening here. Like this has nothing to do with anything except, to me, this says everything to where we are. It talks about the state of Brooklyn.
You even have when transactions are accepted.
And also, this is a working flagpole. One of the things that happens in the show is the night guard starts preparing to close down the bank and takes down the flagpole, and it's really important. And I also think just subtly it becomes a little commentary geopolitically.
And you can see what's going on inside as you're
That's right, and
standing out
obviously
here.
the windows, really important. Time of day, making a public space private was really important as far as the narrative is concerned. But I really love that this kind of big object stores, because it's like all of the people in the show become kind of complicit in the action, and they become the crowd that gathers during the show.
David,
Yes.
thank you so much for inviting us into this space and getting to see it up close. There's so much attention to detail. It's wonderful to see.
It's so much fun talking to you.
We're
Thanks for
partners
being
in
here.
crime.
Yeah, for sure. Shh, don't tell anyone.